Hello, and welcome back to our read through of the New Testament in the year 2026. We are moving into week 12, the fourth week of March, and this week we're reading from Luke chapter 12 to 16. Now, where we left off in the book of Luke is Jesus has revealed his glory to his disciples as the Son of God, but instead of taking that for himself, he's actually starting to enter into conflict with the Pharisees and religious leaders of the time. And when we get into chapter 12, he starts off by warning his disciples of the leaven of the Pharisees, a term for almost saying that they've added an impurity that is spreading through their teachings that wasn't meant to be there in the beginning. The Pharisees added extra rules and regulations on top of everyone. Now, this enters into these next several chapters. There are some points where Jesus heals different people. He heals a woman who is incredibly disabled. She probably has something similar to being a hunchback. It's just very crippling. He heals a man of dropsy. But a lot of this, what's going on here is he's actually teaching his disciples and the people around him. And some of the greatest parables in the Bible come through this area. Chapters 12 and 13 tend to focus on looking forward to Christ's return. These are things that, are echoing passages that happen in Matthew and Mark on the Mount of Olives when Jesus is predicting the fall of Jerusalem and the end of the age. But he's telling people to watch and be ready and to make sure to interpret the signs of what is happening. And he warns the people, his disciples, that they should enter through the narrow gate, the gate that few people take, not going down the easy road that everyone else goes down, but finding the narrow gate. And he heals people on the Sabbath, which is almost intentionally to provoke the Pharisees and the religious leaders, because they have taken the Sabbath regulations to a point where they're almost impossible to follow. And Jesus is like, that's not the purpose of the Sabbath. The purpose of the Sabbath is to let people be released from their obligations of work. And so it's only natural to heal on the Sabbath. And here we get very interesting parables. We get the parables of the wedding feast, where if you're invited to a wedding, it says, don't sit at the place closest to the bride and groom. No, sit lower, and then you will be lifted up if you are actually to be honored in that way, rather than being pushed aside because someone more important comes after you. Or the parable of the banquet, where a man is preparing a banquet and he's invited all these people to it, but when the time comes, they all give excuses of why they can't go. And so he invites everyone else, even the people just off the streets, to come in and to eat at the banquet, showing that the Jewish people, especially the Jewish religious leaders, they are finding excuses to ignore Jesus or to actually go against Jesus, rather than accepting him as the person that was predicted all this time. And so God's going to take away their portion and give it to other people. And we find out later that that's the Gentiles, which is most of us who are not Jewish. We then get into some of the best parables, the parable of the lost sheep, the lost coin, and the lost son. We know the lost sheep, a shepherd leaves 99 sheep, finds the one that went astray, or a woman tears apart her entire house to find her missing coin, and when she finds it, she rejoices. And then we have the prodigal son, the son who leaves, spends all his dad's stuff, leaves, goes away, and then when he has nothing, decides to come back, and the father is waiting and looking for him and celebrates when he returns home. And the final parable that Jesus gives in this section that we are reading is the parable of the rich man and Lazarus. This is one of the few parables, the only parable really, where Jesus actually names the characters. And the rich man and Lazarus both die, Lazarus being a poor man, the rich man being rich. Lazarus gets taken to Abraham's side in the realm of the dead while the rich man is burning in hell, and he asks Abraham to send back Lazarus from the dead to warn everyone that the fate that awaits them, that maybe they could change. And Abraham responds, they have Moses and the prophets to teach them, and if they ignore those, there's nothing I can do. They won't be convinced by someone who is rising from the grave. Which is very poignant when you consider what Jesus went through. In any case, that leaves us off. Jesus is now in Jerusalem, and he's preached several now parables about the joy that the Father has at finding someone who is lost, and just the sheer rebuke against the religious leaders who have led everyone astray. And we'll have to pick up from there next week.